One TV, turning on your world.
All right, a very good morning to you. It's good to see you. Happy new month. I was about to say happy new year, but listen, the year is still relatively young, okay? But it's so good to see you this morning. I hope that you're having a better start to the day and to the week. Welcome to the show. My name is Winnie Lubembe, and today we have a very important conversation, which again, we were discussing this before we came on air, that if you walk around, you hear one or two or three of the Kenyans either complaining about the situation as far as water and sanitation around them is, or others saying, you know what, we've actually come a long way. So today on the show, we'll be discussing about, again, water and sanitation situation in the country, but we'll have a better focus on the public-private partnerships, and this is in accelerating investments for sustainable water and sanitation access here in the country. And of course, this is in preparation for a very big conference, which again we'll be talking about as we continue with the show that will be starting from the 6th. Okay, so 2 days from now to the 8th, a very big conference will be happening as far as, again, you know, partnerships and investments that need to be made as far as water and sanitation situation right here in the country is, because Article 21 of 43, and this is of Kenya's constitution, provides for the citizens' right to reasonable standards of sanitation and clean and safe water in adequate quantities. And despite this provision, 9.9 million Kenyans drink directly from contaminated surface water sources, and an estimated 5 million people practice open defecation. So the big question is, what kind of investments need to be made to strengthen the water and sanitation services here in the country, and what role does public-private partnerships play? And this is to ensure the actualization of the same. We have a very big goal by 2030, okay, which we'll be talking about as we continue with the conversation. So that is what we want to find out from today's conversation right here on Your World. Stick around until the end of the show. You want to contribute, feel free to do so on our socials at NTV Kenya, and that is on X, and on Facebook, and tag me as well on X, and that is at Lubembe_Mini. So very quickly to introduce my guests, I'll begin from my immediate left, and we have Phyllis Kimani, who's a Chief Retail Officer from Family Bank. Good to have you this morning. How are you doing?
Thank you, and happy to be here today.
You look lovely. Yeah. Monday,
Thank
Start
you.
of the week. You look lovely. Thank you so much. We have Mr. Japheth Mbuvi, who's the Chief of Party, Western Kenya Water Project. Good to have you, sir. The only gent amongst the ladies. Feeling good this morning?
I'm happy to be here.
Karibu sana. And we also have Ruth Nganga, who's the General Manager, Water Fund Development from Water Fund. Karibu sana. Good to have you. Look lovely as well in orange. Yeah. Clearly, kuna Monday blues this morning. And we'll begin with you. Ruth, very quickly, before we talk about the conference, and of course, because you're all here on, you know, different capacities, but again, towards a bigger goal, and this is to ensure that we have, I mean, the water and sanitation services here in the country improve, okay, and the right investments and the partnerships that need to be there. But very quickly, if you can speak about the situation in the country. Like I said, over 9 million Kenyans still do not have access to, you know, drink from contaminated surfaces or sources, right? Which is not what we want, because like I said, we have a bigger goal. But just give us an overview of what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to give an overview based on the figures we have now, with a baseline of the census, the population census that was done in 2019. Yeah. And in the document that the ministry has done in collaboration with the Council of Governors to see how we can ensure that we have enough water and sanitation for everyone by 2030. The document, National Water and Sanitation Investment and Financing Plan, uses that baseline to see where we are and where we are headed.
All right.
So in that document, nationally, the water coverage is 73%, but before you get excited, of that 73%, only 34% is piped water. It's piped water.
Okay.
And another 39% with improved sources, but not necessarily piped water. Then there is this 27% that does not even have an improved water source. That is nationally, everywhere. But when you come to what we call regulated areas, regulated areas, we have water services providers. For example, the Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company, who have got licensing to provide water in the area of their jurisdiction. That is what we call regulated areas. So we have various water companies across the country who have their own regulated areas. So within those regulated areas, water coverage is 62%. But it's also likely to be a bit more of the piped and more improved because it is regulated areas. And then in terms of sanitation, it gets a little bit more interesting because sewerage coverage across the country is 16%. Of course, in the urban areas, it's more, around 27%. And like Nairobi, it's probably even just around 50%. Yeah. But sanitation, again, talking about on-site, really just having an improved sanitation facility. That one is a bit high across the country at around 83%. But that facility varies very widely from place to place, what it is that we are calling improved sanitation. It also varies across from county to county. And you mentioned open defecation. Yeah. A lot of counties, about 13 of them, are still practicing open defecation. Yeah. So that is really where we are. And we would want to bring everyone up at least to an improved water source by 2030. If it could be piped, it would be even better. But if it is improved, it's good because it meets the standards.
Yeah. All right. And like I said, you're all here from different entities, but again, towards a bigger goal. So of course, I'm going to start with you on as far as Waterfront is concerned. Very quickly, and then we'll go to Mr. Japheth. Yeah.
So what was the question?
Yes, so on Waterfront and your mandate, and especially, towards the bigger goal, and this is as far as WASIC conference is concerned.
So the Water Sector Trust Fund is a state corporation established in 2016 to succeed an earlier Water Services Trust Fund, which had been established in 2002. So the organization has been here for a long time, but with a different name. So the mandate of the fund is to assist in financing water and sanitation provision in the country. So, and the mandate is very much also focused towards the underserved and the marginalized and also like low-income urban areas where, it's not that easy to go and provide water and sanitation services. So the mandate of the Water Sector Trust Fund, as well as providing conditional and unconditional grants to counties, because that is what the Act says. The mandate of the fund is really to make sure nobody is left behind. Where people feel like this is too difficult, the trust fund shouldn't find that too difficult. So we provide financing for projects in all sorts of places in the country. In the Water Act, we also have functions that we are allowed to do. For example, we can own land. And that is one area where we are working very much with the private sector, including our commercial banks, to do blended financing for affordable credit to our utilities. And we can also form subsidiary funds, and we can do incentive programs. All these things that I'm mentioning is because they kind of bring us to a place where we are able to work with the private sector to advance the goal towards the 2030.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Phyllis will tell us, because I was reading, I was saying bankability of the...
Yes.
So we'll talk about more on the same. But Mr. Japheth, very quickly, as far as Western Kenya project, right? A bit of the same, and some of the, lessons that you have learned, and this is as far as experience working, in the water sector.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Western Kenya Water Project is a 5-year project that is funded by USAID. Basically, the main goal is to increase the availability and access to water in the 8 counties that are found in Western Kenya. And basically, the most important thing here is that as we do this also, ensuring that there's also prudent management of the water resources in that particular area to ensure that we have a continued supply of water. So in terms of the way we work, we really work under what we refer to as supporting county-led initiatives. That we are not creating anything new. We work with the counties to co-create, co-design, and then start the implementation of the programs that are really targeted, and our first point of call actually is supporting them in drafting the right sections of the County Integrated Development Plan, the CIDP. In terms of our approach, we were looking at working within the urban space, and basically is where Ruth was mentioning about the regulated water service providers. But again, trying to work with them and with the capacity to improve the operational efficiencies so that they can be able to become better deliverers of water in these particular areas.
Yeah.
And in the rural space, what happens is what happens on its own in most of the times in rural water schemes. And therefore, there is need currently to really look at putting in place the right service delivery models that will ensure better water delivery in these particular areas. And WASREP, the regulator, has been able to draw this in place, and therefore we are working to support the county governments in terms of ensuring that they are able to implement on this. Essentially, our focus is about building the capacity of the county governments and the water service providers to deliver water in a more coordinated manner, and then also to strengthen the institutions that work within the water space, that then allow financing and good governance to get into place. And it is also very important to ensure that as we do this, there is inclusivity of everybody. In other words, looking at the youth, the women, and also bringing in on board private sector, and that's where Phyllis comes in.
That's true.
Essentially, understanding that public financing is not adequate in the sector.
And of course, that is where we all emphasize, and that is the role of the private sector. So the public-private, partnership comes in. Okay, and I'm also interested to hear the challenges, because majority of the times when we talk about water, we usually focus on the urban areas, right? But the rural areas will be like, okay, but we're also here. We need water. It's a basic, right? Essential need. So what are some of these unique challenges that over time you have experienced? But let's speak to Phyllis very quickly. We talked about public-private partnerships, right? And of course, this is in addressing the water and sanitation challenges right here in the country. But I'm just curious to understand the initiatives that Family Bank is undertaking really to support what Mr. Japheth and Ruth are doing.
Thank you so much. You've said it, water is a basic need, but at the same time, it's a social and economic good. The beauty is the SDG 6 supports private sector participation in financing the provision of water supplies and sanitation. And Kenya has set a very ambitious target of the universal access to wash by 2030. And so if you look at the amount of money that is needed, and then what has been allocated by government and other development partners, there is a gap. And out of that particular gap, then 31% is envisaged to come from the private-public partnerships. And so the banks comes in to bridge that particular gap, and commercial lending comes in handy to supplement the resources that are coming from government and also the development partners. As Family Bank, we've come up with a blended financing model together with our partners like the Water Service Trust Fund under the utility financing. And what happens is that the Water Service and Trust Funds have been able to identify like 7 water service public utility companies that they feel they are bankable. And for us, we've come in because it's basically a revenue-based financing, looking at how the revenues are based and whether they can be able to service the facilities that are coming in. And so as Family Bank, what is happening, we are pre-financing these projects 100% because they are resort-oriented.
So I'm curious, so what happens? So do you have like individual groups, or me, as Winnie, can come to you and say, you know what, I have this idea, I have this project, do you want to finance, all right? It's just to explain to us a little bit about the bankability, aspect of some of these projects that you mentioned.
It comes across a number of fronts. Once we also finance individuals that come in, if they want to do, for example, drill a borehole and supply water to the neighbors. Also, it comes to either supply or even water points, especially the water kiosk. The MSMEs who also do supply package do the same things. But the big thing comes especially to the public water utility companies that are basically in the counties. And the project I'm talking about with the Water Service Trust Fund is whereby we are able to pre-finance the whole of that project 100%. And then what happens upon completion of that particular project, then they come in and subsidize or prepay that 50% of that particular amount that we have disbursed, because it's basically, they are meant to repay if the project is complete with agreeable terms. And the beauty with the bank is we are able to track that particular project by advancing that money in tranches upon the risk certificates that they bring. So we give the comfort that that particular project will go to completion.
Okay.
And then we also come in other areas that like community-based organizations. So we are quite widespread. But under the PPPs, we are mainly coming especially within the water service providers.
All right. And Ruth, I'm curious to hear some of these specific initiatives, you know, that Waterfund has, you know, either started or strengthened or, you know, is putting up just to ensure the success. Remember the big goal that we talked about in 2030.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. And just allow me to say what we are doing, for example, now with the banks. It's more of private sector collaboration.
All right.
And like Phyllis mentioned, the NAWASIP document that I mentioned earlier foresees that 81 billion Kenya shillings will come from the commercial financing to plug into that gap we are talking about.
All right.
Another 313 will come from public-private partnerships, which is a different category, by the way, from private sector collaboration.
All right.
But of course, in the conference, we'll be discussing also who are these investors who can do the PPPs under the framework, which is very complex, and then who are the private sector who can collaborate with us under private sector collaboration.
Right.
And of course, we have also those partners who give concessional financing, concessional loans at about another maybe 395 billion. So for the banks, we are looking at the 82 billion.
All right.
So one of the programs that we have done is the one that Phyllis was talking about. But we've had two programs so far. One of it we called output-based aid, funded by the World Bank and CEDA. And then we had the aid on delivery, funded by the German Development Bank. Same kind of programs, but the model is exactly what Phyllis explained.
All right.
So we will go to the utilities and also to their counties and tell them we have this financing. We are looking for bankable projects. And if you do this kind of project, and these are the milestones we are looking at for the Water Sector Trust Fund, the milestones are usually that you have connectivity, especially to the low-income areas which have not been connected before. Maybe you reduce non-revenue water, you show more efficiency towards the business models that you have. And then if you do that, then we will be able to subsidize you at, actually at one point we were subsidizing at 60%. Now we are subsidizing at 50%.
Oh, wow.
And so once they reach those milestones, then we are able to release a subsidy. And also we do it also in tranches because you also want accountability and also transparency. So one program has been done, completed. Utilities have repaid all their loans.
Oh,
and even those one or two who have not yet repaid have not defaulted, and they are still paying back. So it tells us that there is bankability, and maybe our utilities can even handle more than what they're getting because many of them repaid before time.
Oh, wow.
They repaid before time.
Yeah.
And some of them took 2 of the loans, and they have repaid both of the loans ahead of tenor. Okay. So what does that tell you? Of course, there are not many, maybe about 8 to 9 utilities, but we are working with a lot of institutions, including even USAID and other organizations out there to build the capacity of other utilities so that they can be bankable, and we expand this bracket that can actually access blended financing through the collaboration between our commercial banks and the public sector.
The public sector.
Yeah. So there's one ongoing. There's one ongoing, there's one complete, done and dusted, and everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy. Okay, all right.
Yes.
And talking about the universal access to clean and safe drinking water, and again sanitation services here in the country, what are some of the challenges and maybe barriers, or maybe the opportunities that are also there? Because so that we don't just focus on the challenge,
okay, great.
but the opportunity as well.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we've been able to find in the sector is weak and poor governance. Governance has been a big challenge in the sector, both at the urban water utilities as well as the community water schemes level. We have also kind of been able to observe in the rural areas, for example, the community management model does not work. So part of the work that you're doing is about professionalizing the way water is managed, even at that particular level. So we're doing a lot of work around governance, both at the county level as well as the water service provider level. But again, also, we're finding that non-revenue water still remains as the elephant in the house. But essentially, this comes around mainly because many of the systems that we have are dilapidated, that they're old, and therefore they need replacement. But again, even some of the systems that we are building, we have seen cases of poor design and poor construction.
Okay.
That really makes it difficult for us to reduce non-revenue water. This is one area that we really need to be able to work on. And over time, again, also, we have seen our tariffs are not sufficient to cover operation and maintenance. And therefore, the need to start revising these ones becomes critical. But again, WASREB is a bit reluctant to do these revisions when our non-revenue water is also very high. So we really need to work on non-revenue water, even as we move on to start employing new tariffs. We should also make sure that as all this happens, we have seen a lot of lack of attention to water resources management, and therefore some of our water catchments are degrading, and there is need to start getting more forceful in terms of how we protect our water resources. So these, I would say, are some of the key challenges that we are finding in the sector. Yeah.
Right, but at the same time, there's so many opportunities to deal.
Yes, there are many opportunities. Yeah. For example, over time, people have started embracing that water, even though free from gold, it really flows in pipes and chemicals are needed to treat it. And therefore, the payment for the fee for water is actually about that. That if you really want to make water potable and you want to improve the access, then the need to pay for water is becoming universally acceptable now in this country. And I think that is a big opportunity.
Okay.
And then the collaboration between the different actors in terms of how you protect both the upstream so that we have got a sustained resource is also becoming important.
Wow.
And I think the presidential initiative in terms of planting the 15 billion trees is really, it talks to this.
I hear that. And of course, we'll talk about accountability. This is after break, Ruth. But again, very quickly, before we go on a break, Phyllis, there's a project, right? And this is as far as to unlock 100 dams and 10,000 small and medium dams initiatives. And this is through the PPPs rather, that we've talked about earlier on in commercial, financing. So again, I'm really curious to hear what Family Bank is doing in terms of positioning yourself for the same. And this is in regards to opportunities that are there, to work together. And that is both the private and the public sector.
We say these dams are very capital intensive,
we
would say that. And the government is coming in to address especially the drilling of these dams. And as banks, we are coming in with opportunities as Family Bank to see the initiatives to ensure that that particular water goes to the consumer, to the end consumer. Whether it is pumping, solarization, ensuring that that water, there is the connectivity that is coming in the funding in terms of the connectivity of those particular waters to go to the final consumer of that water. Because a dam can be there, a borehole can be drilled.
True.
But then how will that water
get to the people?
Go to the people and the final. And that is where as Family Bank we are coming in to ensure that we are having some of these projects that are coming in to ensure that that water is piped or they are pumped. And even some of the institutions having the water kiosk, all points at which they can be able to sell this money. And some of these projects are quite heavy. And as a bank, through one of our partners, water.org, we've even hired or deployed a consultant to just give us the validity, to validate some of these funding projects that are coming forth. Just to tell us or paint a picture of how will this project be in terms of infrastructure and how will be the revenue look like by the end of that particular project, so that we'll see whether it's a bankable case or not.
Okay, bankability still on the same. Okay, so let's take a break, but when we come back, I would also speak a little bit on the upcoming conference, which, like we said, a very big conference on Water and Sanitation Investors Conference, which will be happening from the 6th to the 8th of March under the theme, Accelerating Investments for Sustainable Access to Water and Sanitation for All. So how important is this conference and how can we all be a part of the same? Well, you'll find out after the break. Stay with us. The show is Your World. So when it comes to women in tech, honestly, the numbers are low, and it's actually, for me, I actually take it like as a challenge. So what can we actually do to actually just start impacting a 10-year-old, other than just impacting them from university level?
I've been in tech since 2010. By then, it was only limited to software development, and most of us were scared of it, but we actually ventured into it.
I started as a makeup artist, and I got very interested in the field and went ahead and pursued a course in cosmetology. Then after that, I started learning about manufacturing through KIRDI, Kenya Institute of Research and Development.
I see NMG's role as dual. As providers of information that we are so conscious to ensure meets the needs of women. And so consistently, NMG runs mentorship programs. We consistently reach out to women who we can hire for various roles. But we also are consciously looking at growing our women-related content that allows us to very consciously act as a bridge between the women and the information that they require. I'm a lover of all things women, inspire inclusion.
Get ready to have your mind blown.
It's your girl Shanti Bobo straight out number 9 na niko NTV na nasikia poa manze.
It's a new chapter.
We're bringing you the hottest show in town.
Most lovely platform for our artists and most amazing.
You know charity starts at home.
Again, it was for church, but
from exclusive interviews with the biggest names in the game.
Justina Sukao aka Madam 2020 utapata show pale katika NTV.
Kazi yetu mostly ni kuingia tu studio kufanya muziki na kusubmit.
To a DJ set that will knock your socks off. And snippets from your favorite live performances.
Apologize when it's soft tea. Nasaka like location to kute so she.
Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Kwetu Mix every weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. only on NTV.
All right, welcome back. The show is Your World, and like I said, today we're talking about something that touches each and every one of us, all right? And this is as far as the water and sanitation services are right here in the country under the public-private partnerships in accelerating investments for sustainable water and sanitation access right here in the country, again, because like we said, it's enshrined in our constitution that each and every single Kenyan needs to have access to not only water, okay, but clean water, all right, safe water. But again, like we started the show and we said, over 9 million Kenyans, still get water from contaminated sources. So then what are some of these investments that need to be put in place to make sure that by 2030, which Ruth is very, she's very strong on the same, we have a bigger goal, and this is by 2030, and that is to help empower communities to increase access to water and sanitation towards the realization of the vision, and that is 2030. Okay, so what are some of these right investments that need to be put in place? That is our conversation this morning right here on Your World. So be part of the same, and that is at NTV Kenya at Lubembe_Winnie. That is on X, and engage with us as well on Facebook as well, and that is at NTV Kenya. So Ruth, can we talk about then accountability? Okay, because this is most of us usually focus on the same, and this is transparency and accountability to make sure that we're all on the same page. Nothing is lost at the right? So can we talk about what Waterfund is doing to ensure the same?
Yeah, so accountability really means that whatever resources that you have been entrusted with, you have utilized it well, and you can account for it. You can report and you can show how it was utilized for purpose, for eligible activities, as was intended. and you're able to report it back, and you're able to account for, if it is about financing, you're able to account for every shilling or every resource, well, even if it was human resource. But from a financial perspective, it is that aspect of financial accountability. You can trace every shilling, every dollar. If Japhet here has given me any finances, I can account for every shilling. And we can say that we have completed this project, it's been done well, and accountability is continuous. Every activity you're doing, there are some reporting timelines that come with it, and you're able to report, and it can show that you're utilizing the resources well. And that applies to any kind of project you can think about, whether it is in water or outside water, whether it is in government or in the private sector. And transparency is really just to be seen to be doing things in the open. You don't have any underhanded things. You're not keeping information. When you talk of reporting, it also comes in there. So you're open with what you're doing. What you've been asked to report on, you're not hiding anything. You don't have anything held back. You don't have any skeletons in the cupboard. You're transparent, especially in terms of the programs that you're doing or the projects that you're doing in this particular aspect. So it's about information. It's about communication. It's about reporting.
All right.
Yeah.
I see that. I see that. Okay. Mr. Japhet, I mean, there are several attempts that have been made, and this is to improve access to water across the country. But I'm curious to hear, what exactly you're doing, just to make sure that then we achieve the success of the same.
Yeah, one of the very, I did mention earlier on that one of the things that we're finding, with especially with the urban water utilities, is the low efficiencies in terms of what they perform.
Okay.
And therefore, one key area that we're working on is trying to build the capacity to improve on the operational efficiency. And the whole idea here is that once they're able to improve their operational efficiencies, they're then able to correct or improve their revenue streams, and then they become more bankable. And that makes more attractive to fielders and the team. Because, and as I mentioned earlier, public finances are never going to be adequate, and therefore we need to start preparing these particular utilities to be able to access some commercial finance. Again, the other area that we're really working on is trying to build the capacities in terms of good governance and good corporate governance, and therefore we have been ensuring that we support them in terms of the boards, in terms of understanding proper corporate governance, and then again also helping them to be able to make sure that their internal organizational structures are set in place properly.
All right.
As you do this also, you realize that there's a need to domesticate the policies, legislation, because essentially from the devolution point of view, the county governments are specific entities, and therefore they need to have their own water policies that are in line with the national policy. And again, they need to have an act at that county level that is also again in line with the national laws and regulations. So we are supporting all these particular aspects because we do believe that a well-functioning utility then is able to deliver better in terms of service provision. The other area that we're really working on and emphasizing on is the whole area of ensuring that each of these particular utilities, even the small community ones, become responsive in terms of water resources management within the catchments that where they're getting water, and therefore supporting them through the WRA, the Kenya Forest Services, and the local other institutions to ensure that the local communities in those particular areas are able to take part in the maintenance of the water resources in that particular area. But again, in some of the areas, for example, when you go to Western Kenya area where we're working on, there's a lot of eucalyptus that is planted, and it has really destroyed the water sources. So whereas we can really preach about cutting down the eucalyptus, you've got to give people alternative livelihoods. And therefore, this becomes a very important part of the entire discussion if you're going to be able to get success in this particular area.
All right. Is there like a specific unique approach that has not been tried that Western Kenya Water Project is, you know, doing to again?
Essentially, we're trying to be innovative.
Okay.
Innovative in the sense that, and as she did mention, that, for example, in the financing space, we have seen that many of these political organizations cannot be able to get full commercial loans. So how do you create an instrument that blends the financing, mixes the financing in such a way that partly commercial, partly public, so as to be able to deliver? So these are a very important area that we are working on.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Phyllis, again, so what are some of these, you know, ways that Family Bank is doing? Because Ruth mentioned earlier on about the financing gap, right? So what exactly is Family Bank doing just to address this whole aspect as far as the gap is concerned?
We have a number of partners whom we're working with, local and global partners who are playing in this particular sector, whom we've come in collaboration with. And the key partners is water.org. Then we have Africa Guarantee Fund, we have Water Equity, and recently Aqua for All, which is Netherlands-based. And starting back in 2016, when we started this partnership with water.org, and we are able to come up with a product, which is a credit facility due to MagiPlus, because that is the Family Bank facility for, it's called MagiPlus. It's basically meant to offer funding to either whether it is an individual who wants to drill up boreholes and do the supplies, whether it is a school that is currently we've onboarded schools into the same program, whereby they are able, whether it's to do water harvesting, whatever way, whether they want to drill a borehole. The community water service providers, especially talking about whether they are CBOs, whether they are associations, whether they are trusts, faith-based, and they have that particular need that they have under WASH. That is where we are coming in. And also something else, we've been able to offer them facilities, even up to unsecured facilities, because of the understanding that we have within the sector, with very flexible repayment tenors, going all the way to a number of years, depending on what is the need of that particular project. And also to the public water utility companies. Some of these projects take a long period, especially if you're coming in to solve the issue or the main challenge of the non-revenue water. And also when you're doing expansion or rehabilitating the already existing facilities that they have. And then we also have repayment structures, whether others are termly, if it's a school, if schools is termly, others are monthly. And depending on the way the financing is, we are financing quite a huge percentage. Some of them going to 100%, others around 80%. But outside that is giving them the knowledge that they need, because we are doing a lot of capacity building to our staff to help us understand this particular sector, which is more or less also quite technical, and also doing cohorts of particular groups of individuals, or so at least you are able to sensitize each other that what is it that is needed there. And we've also been able to come up with a utility lending framework, basically touching on the public water utility companies, and you're also targeting the private sector. There are people who are out there that they want just to have maybe a small water kiosk, basically to ensure they're able to offer water. Others, they just want to finance what we call the water bozers. They want to drill, they want to do pit things, because even sanitation is also one of the key things. Outside water, that is what we are calling about sanitation. And in schools, we've come and brought together the biogas issue. That as part of sanitation, then can we be able to use all that particular waste to offer biogas for cooking and other things? One of the key need that has really come up is the ICT solutions, especially when it comes to the smart metering, or they're calling it the digital metering, the billing system, the prepaid meters. Is also one of the needs that you've really come in, and you're coming in handy to finance that particular project. The other issues of to do with rehabilitation and water harvesting, water tanks, how small, how big the institutions are in, depending on the need that they have. Then Family Bank is coming in. Water Equity has come into Family Bank to give us a fund for on lending to the water sector. So meaning in terms of funding, we already have a fund as a Family Bank from Water Equity to help us advance those particular funds.
And liking the fact that all of us are emphasizing the importance of public-private partnerships, because really you can't operate in silos. You know, we did all this, partners and institutions to come together. Okay, so can we talk about then the conference, because according to NAWASIP, they're saying the country requires 995 billion shillings, Kenyan shillings. This is to meet the target for universal access by 2030. And out of this figure, 313 billion Kenyan shillings, this is 31% of the, is envisaged to be mobilized through the public-private partnerships. And another 82 billion shillings, this is to be mobilized through the commercial financing to invest in the following components prioritized by NAWASIP. Okay, so this conference, because the president said one of the things, and I read what he said. He said, attending the conference offers transformative insights into the latest trends and best practices driving sustainable water management and improved sanitation infrastructure right here in the country. So Ruth, very quickly, can just help us really understand the importance of this conference and what I would say all of us, plus other partners, you know, that are involved in planning of the same, are hoping to achieve by the end of the same year.
Thank you so much, Winnie. So the financing gap to ensure every Kenyan has adequate, safe and adequate water and sanitation by 2030 is 652 billion Kenya shillings. By gap, I mean out of that 995, the government and whatever other sources are there can account for maybe around 300 and something. So there's still a gap of 652 billion that needs to be provided. So this conference is telling our investors out there, our partners out there, both in the country and also outside the country, to come and plug into this gap. So we have a conversation. What do they need? What kind of models do we need to put in place? We tell them this is our opportunities. This is the pipeline of projects that we have. This is what we have in water. This is what we have in sanitation and sewerage. This is what we have in irrigation. This is what we have in water resources management. Where can you invest, and what do we need to do for you to be able to do that? So we want the investors to come so we can talk to them about the opportunities, and so that they can also come and see the opportunities, and hopefully we end up with signed agreements and programs that will see this country achieve universal access by 2030. So to mention that the goal for NAWASIP is 100% water access for all by 2030. It is 100% sanitation, that is like on-site sanitation for all by 2030. In terms of sewerage, you know, that's safely managed sanitation, sewerage services. We are looking to see at least 40% of urban areas covered with sewerage, and the remaining 60% covered with what we call non-sewer sanitation, mostly decentralized treatment facilities. So for all of them, safely managed, but for at least 40% of them connected to sewerage services.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Japheth, again, so like we said, emphasizing on very strongly on public-private partnerships, right? But then again, so how then can the key sector players work together, and this is to attract more investments? Because clearly there is a gap, as Ruth mentioned.
I think one of the most important things that we want also to be asking ourselves in this conference, and as we work in the sector, is that is the sector ready for these investments? And so from where I stand, or from where I see it, I think our work from where I see it is to prepare the sector to be ready for investments. And this requires better coordination so that we are all committed and working together towards a common goal. But again, also, the sector has been in dire need of data and information. And therefore, and just as the fellows just mentioned, the need to improve our data collection and information gathering so that we are able to make informed decisions on where the investments should go is also very, very, very critical. But again, we are only going to be able to attract investments in this particular sector if those we are asking for the monies do understand that we are able to prove and demonstrate that our operational efficiencies have been able to improve adequately. And secondly also, governance. This is key because it is very essential for us to improve the overall governance into the sector if we really want to continue to attract investments.
Finance,
So for me, is coordination becomes essential so that we are able to build the capacities of our institutions so that they can be able to attract financing. So with the wastage that we are having, and revenue water at 45%, this raises a lot of red flags, and therefore this is one area that really we need to work on so as to be able to attract investments into this sector.
All right. And just picking up on the same, and this is, you mentioned governance, all right? So Phyllis, bringing you in terms of, assessing the worthiness. And this is as far as financial governance is concerned, the credit worthiness, and also what we have been mentioning since we started the show, bankability, okay? So how then do you assess as Family Bank, just to see whether this is bankable or not?
Family Bank access the bankability of water and sanitation institution once through checking the financial credibility of the sector institutions. Number two, we also look at the credit worthiness of those sectors, institutions. What is the track record of the past projects that they have also undertaken?
All right.
What is the ESG component, especially anything touching on social and environmental impact? Without emphasizing transparency in governance, because we also look at how that particular institution is governed.
Right.
And also we look at the qualification of the teams who are implementing that particular project. Then by looking at all this, then you're able to see, is this project really bankable? So those are some of the ways that
you assess that. Okay, yes. I see that. And so when we talk about the bigger goal, and that is the year 2030. And you've mentioned a couple of things that needs to be, to be done as soon as now. The biggest question is then priority, right? What are some of the areas that need to either start or to be strengthened as soon as now to ensure the success of the bigger goal, and that is by 2030?
Wow, that's a big question. A lot is going on. The sector doesn't stop. We are planning this so we can accelerate.
All right.
The overall goal is accelerating investments for sustainable access to water and sanitation for all. And the unspoken word is by 2030.
Yeah.
So it hasn't stopped. It's ongoing. But the biggest priority is to accelerate investments that will fast track this. Phyllis talked about doing big projects, but then there being need to now take that water from the big projects and do the last mile connectivity. Actually take it to the people, because you can have a big project and not connect the people to the water, and then there is still a gap in terms of service provision. But the priority right now is also to develop those big projects, because that is where the water is going to come from.
That's true.
And so the sector, our ministry has a target of doing various dams, big, small, and medium. But I know there's a focus even in the NAWASIP, talking about 100 dams. And these are big projects that are going to require really now the proper public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships, because they require huge resources, and we don't have enough of them. But then, that being one priority, the other priority is for the other players in the sector, be it now the Water Sector Trust Fund with financing for that last mile connectivity, be it our commercial banks with providing access to financing so that we can reach that last mile connectivity. And then the utilities that come in between with their counties, ensuring that they plug into those big projects so that they can connect the people to the water. So all this is priority. I don't think there is any part of the sector right now which is not a priority. But the biggest thing that we need right now is to cover this financing gap. Because if we still have this financing gap, then all our priorities are still in paper.
That's true.
But even the financing is in itself a goal. Then we do the projects. We make sure that Kenyans are connected to water and sanitation. And it is really about accelerating, because it's 6 years. It's 6 years to 2030. And we really don't want a situation where we are in 2030 or maybe 2027, and we are saying, like we said about the Millennium Development Goals, it looks like we are not going to meet our 2030 goals, and then we revise it again. So we do what we can now so that we can accelerate and be able to achieve our goal in 2030.
I see that.
Yeah.
I see that. And Mr. Japheth, again, you're very key on governance, yeah? So what are some of these areas that need to be improved or accelerated, like Ruth says, and especially as far as governance is concerned, because you might have these great ideas, you might have this great project, you might have, you know, the right type of investments into this, but if governance is weakened, then the whole, you know, the whole agenda or the whole goal will tumble. So then what are some of these specific things, areas that need to be strengthened as soon as now, as far as governance is concerned, to make sure that the success of the same come 2030?
Great. WASREP has got very clear guidelines on how you are supposed to be able to put in place the board of directors of the different water sector institutions, and especially the WSPs. But we have seen this not being the case every day.
Okay.
So if we are to go by the book and really follow WASREP guidelines in terms of getting the right quality of the board of directors for these different institutions, that will actually play a very big role in terms of improving the governance. The second thing is that we have seen very many changes in the CMT, the Central Management Team of the water companies. Well, honestly, if an MD is around for only 1 year, it doesn't give him enough time to really implement the different progression of that, to see the progression of that particular company. So if we could have a bit more stability in terms of the top leadership of our water sector institutions, and especially the water service providers, for us, this will be one direction in terms of improving overall governance. There are also, in other cases, whereby in the counties and the WSPs, the policies and the laws are not yet in place.
Okay.
So if we can accelerate getting these ones into place, so that we have got a governance structure that is able to survive on its own, that is not driven by individuals, but there are systems that really run the show, this will be a great thing for the sector. So this is critical for both the, and especially at the county level and the water service providers, so that we actually improve the sustainability of our staffing, so that it is a bit more stable to allow us to move to the next level.
I say that. And Phyllis, you know, so understanding the bigger goal. So can you talk about how important collaboration is, and especially from where you sit together with other, you know, stakeholders, either public or private, the really important role as far as collaboration is concerned, just to make sure that come 2030, like Ruth is emphasizing, we all have, first of all, we beat the financing gap, you know, which is there, but at the same time, just ensure that, you know, all the projects maybe are financed and they're able to also repay, you know, their facilities on time.
One key challenge in the sector is lack of collateral, which hinders many valuable bankable projects to get financing, especially within the commercial bank.
All right.
And to address these challenges, Family Bank has, that's why there is now they've onboarded strategic partnerships to be able to address this issue. And mainly the partnerships are coming in terms of offering credit guarantees, in terms of the guarantees. And that is why you've seen Family Bank have been able to come up with an unsecured or a partly secured facilities to be able to address that gap. And recently, that is last year, we were able to launch a challenge fund together with one of our Netherlands based Aqua for All, where they are coming in to give a 20% guarantee. So meaning that even if they're not able to give maybe a 20% contribution, then can they come in and give that 20% as a subsidy? And then the bank is able to give us the 80%. But basically, it is a revenue-based loan financial solution. Not basically looking at collateral, but what are the revenues that are going to be generated from the project. But first we look at what are the current revenue generated from the project that they already have, and also upon implementing the project, how will the revenues look like. And so by these initiatives, we've seen the breaking of the barriers when it comes to this security issue, because that has been the main challenge with the security issue. And this fund is currently carrying out as a pilot in 6 counties, basically Machakos, Makueni, Nairobi, Nakuru, Kajiado, and Kiambu County.
Okay.
These are the counties that we are currently piloting this particular challenge fund with Aqua for All. So with these partners, then it means you're able to look at what are the challenges that they are facing. And then outside them, how do we bridge these particular challenges? And that is why you see also as a bank, we've been benchmarking with other countries on how they are faring. And for the last 3 weeks, you are able to host a team of executives from banks and microfinance from Southern Asia, basically India and Bangladesh, just learning what are we doing different, because they've seen there's something good that you are doing, especially addressing the gap, and also learning from them on their country on what they are also doing. That tells us there's something unique
that is happening here.
That is happening in Family Bank.
Okay, I hear you. All right. So Ruth, because we need to bring the conversation to a close. All right, time is far much spent. So, like, in what ways, can participation? This is from the Water and Sanitation Investors Conference. That is the WASIC 2024. So, in what ways can people, either state or non-state actors, participate in this? Maybe there's a Kenyan watching us and thinking, okay, how can I have these great ideas.
Thank you very much. Just to remind everyone, the conference starts this Wednesday, on 6th to 8th of March.
Yeah.
So you can still participate even now as a delegate, where you register and you can attend all the sessions, you can listen, you can ask questions, but more importantly, you can network.
Okay.
You can network. If you're an organization, you can have business-to-business discussions, and those are the deals we are talking about, that hopefully there will be partnerships emanating from this. You can also apply to exhibit, so that you can exhibit what is it that you do. What does your organization do? And again, that's another way of having a conversation between the public and the private sector. Again, with the goal of coming up with collaboration. We want collaboration for increased access to water and sanitation. There are many who are going to be having convener sessions. Like Japhet here is going to have a session where he's just going to tell the participants what the Western Kenya Water Project is doing. And we have about 23 of those.
All right.
Yeah, those conversations going on.
All right.
So people can also participate as conveners, but that is a closed door now, because it's Monday and the conference is on the 6th. But the delegates and the exhibitors, you're still welcome, but time is running out.
Time is running out, so take advantage of now.
Now.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Ruth, for that. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, and I know there's so many other partners, who you're collaborating, together to ensure the success of the same. And just allow me to mention a few: United States Agency for International Development, that is USAID, Kenya Gatsby Africa, Royal Danish Embassy, Kenya African Development Bank, Nashon Media Group, CC, okay, Sanitation and Hygiene Fund, Water Sanitation for the Urban Poor, Netherlands Embassy, and not forgetting Family Bank, who are also represented here on the show this morning. Thank you so much for coming by, this morning and helping us really drive this important agenda. And most importantly, as far as the right investments from the public-private partnerships to ensure the success of the same, and this is come 2030. So, Phyllis Kimani, Chief Retail Officer, Family Bank, thank you so much for your time this morning. Mr. Japhet Mbuvi, Chief of Party, Western Kenya Water Project, asante sana for your time. And not forgetting Ruth Nganga, General Manager, Water Fund Development from Water Fund. Thank you so much as well for joining us this morning. Remember, the conference starts from 6th to the 8th of March 2024. So if you can find yourself, to be a participant, please, by all means, feel free to do so. So allow us to say goodbye. My name is Winnie Lubembe. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your viewing as well.